The first play that we're going to see has to do with, we've seen a lot of additional action on the defensive side of the ball prior to the ball being snapped. And there's a lot of what I'll call abrupt, coordinated movement by the defense. And what we've seen is over the last 4 or 5 years, the number of false starts per game has gone up. And I attribute it to what the defense is doing on that side of the ball. And it's just not what I see in the Southeastern Conference. It's what my peers and I have all been seeing across the nation. This year, a change in the football rules is we're adding a standard to the defensive side of the ball that the offense has had for a century or more. The definition of a false start has forever been action that simulates the snap. That standard, action that simulates the snap, is now put on the defense as well, and the officials are being asked to judge defensive movement in that light. We're going to watch this defensive tackle that's lined up between the right tackle and the right guard. And you're going to see he has 2 down teammates to our left of him that are going to, what football coaches do called stemming, right? That action by the 2 that are stemming on our left, legal. But you can see in concert with that, we have a tackle between the right guard and right tackle who's flinching. He's simulating action at the snap. And it works. It makes the right guard move here, right? This is action that has now been written into the rules, codified, that it's an illegal, it's what we call delay of game defense. This is not a false start on the offense. The next play is going to, this isn't necessarily a rule change as much as it's a new emphasis for the judgment that officials are going to use with what we call defensive matchups when the offense substitutes in typically a high-tempo offense. We go into what we call substitution mechanics. You'll see the mechanics when the referee is going into this position right here, and this starts off signifying that the offense is substituted. And once the offense has declared the 11, he's going to look over the defensive sideline and give him a 3-second window for the defense to match up substitute. What we've seen over the last couple of years, and we've definitely saw it at a high volume or a higher volume in the 2024 postseason, is defenses are starting to try to game how they're doing their matchup substitutions and trying to eat up the play clock. And so we're adding the concept of the substitutions need to be done with an athletic pace. The standard part has always been the defense must substitute promptly. That was the standard that we need to interpret for our judgment on what the defense is doing. We're adding now that they need to do it at an athletic pace. And we're going to watch this substitution by the defense here. And you'll see a couple of things. Maybe or maybe not an athletic pace being used by not only the substitute coming onto the field, but the player that's being replaced going off the field. But there's also something else going on, Ryan. We can go all the way back to the clip. We're going to watch the change between let's go to the beginning of the clip. The change between the interior defensive linemen, how long it takes to identify who the replaced players are going to be. And what we're asking our teams to do is, the matchup substitution rules are such that the defense needs to start their substitution within 3 seconds of the offense declaring their 11 players for the next snap. The replaced players need to be identified in that window as well. What are we going to do if this happens? And we do it in this game. Watch the center judge. He's the official that's right behind the center. If we deem the defensive substitution is not with athletic pace, it's not being done promptly, we're going to simply take the center judge off the ball like we're doing here. And now the offense is free to snap the ball, and the defense may or may not have 11 players on the field when the ball snaps. The next 2 plays deal with a rule change that has to do with when officials have to call a timeout for injury. Is the only time in this 30 minutes, so I'm going to use the word feigned. Feigned injuries is how you typically write this up in your articles and whatnot. The new rule is such that once the ball's been spotted at the spot on the field for the succeeding snap, the ball's now ready for play, and should a player go down such that an official is forced to call an official's timeout for injury, that player's team is going to be charged a timeout, and if that team does not have a timeout remaining, it will incur a 5-yard delay of game foul. So we're going to look at a couple of plays, and these are, it's difficult to find video that really illustrates what's going on. We're looking at this player that's circled all the way on our top left. In relation to what happened in this play, we have a long gain. The official that's running towards the end line right now, that's the back judge who was standing 25 yards deep in the defensive backfield when the play started. It was a long gain, and the back judge is the one that retrieved the ball at the end of the down and has taken it to the succeeding spot. But he's waiting for the umpire to join him there. That's the second official that's jogging up to him from our left, right? While this is going on, this player goes down. And as you might suspect, of the 8 officials on the field, none of them are looking at this spot of the field on when this player is going down. This rule is not designed to address what's going on here, right? This player is going to be deemed having declared, going down due to injury prior to the ball being ready for play. And if it's not obvious to the officials on the field what the timing relationship is between him presenting himself as injured and the ball being made ready for play, we're going to deem it the injury was prior to the ball being ready for play. We're not going to charge timeout or administer a delayed game foul. Let's look at the opposite. Let's go to the next play. This is what we call the program feed. You see, the ball was snapped and we're killing the play immediately because prior to the snap, we're identifying a player down injured on the defensive side of the ball. It's this player in white here. And if we fast forward, we find a camera to show you what transpired. You're going to see the ball down and the umpire backing up off the ball. He has the U on him. And you can see clearly the ball's ready for play go back to the beginning of the clip. Ball's ready for play with the center with his hands on the ball. And now the player goes down, right? This is what the rule change is designed to address. This particular action right here, this would be a charge timeout against the defense. Should it not have any timeouts left, this would be a 5-yard delay game. I see smiles out there. Sometimes these plays do bring a little hilarity to the presentation. Next rule change. We're going to show you that, we're going to take a look at this deep receiver to our lower right. Stop it right there. He's going to give a T signal. And if you never knew why, this is kickoff return primarily, although this rule change does apply to punts as well. They give this signal to tell their teammates we're not going to return the ball, right? And they do that for 2 reasons. They don't want their teammates to go off and set their blocks and give themselves a possibility of getting injured, right? And they also sometimes don't want to give away what kind of return that they had drawn up, right? They want to disguise what they were going to do because they're not going to return the ball, so don't give it any way to your opponent. So they were using this signal. And what was happening is, let's go ahead and play this clip now. Watch what happens here. This is the opening kickoff in the Florida State game. Everyone assumes he's not going to return it because he does that, but he goes off and returns the ball. And we as officials correctly allowed him during the 24 season to return the ball because the only thing that would kill a return is a valid or invalid fair catch signal. And valid and invalid fair catch signals are defined as a waving action. Typically this, but this, or any kind of arm waving action was the only way that we could have a signal that would kill a return. The T signal now is interpreted as a waving signal. If you give the T signal, this is the same as doing this. And you can obviously catch the ball, right? And if you catch it in the end zone, it's going to give you the 25-yard line. But what I suspect happened on this play, and it happens quite often, is that the deep returner assumes the ball is going to go into the end zone. So he's telling his teammates that they're not going to return it, and then realize, no, the ball's going to come down about the 2 or 3 yard line, and I need to go off and catch it. And now he goes up and catches it. If that sequence happens in the 25 season and beyond, he now has the ball where he catches it on the 2 or 3 yard line. He has taken away his ability to return the ball by virtue of the T signal. One last video to show for you. And we don't even need to look at the video. This is the Friday night of Thanksgiving weekend last year, our annual Georgia Tech rivalry. And you see that we are starting the 8th overtime. And we've changed the rules pertaining to both charge timeouts and media timeouts for overtime. We're not changing the rules that has to do with how you score in overtime. And just a quick review, first overtime period, score a touchdown, you can kick a 1-point field goal, or you can go for 2. Should you get to a second overtime, you score a touchdown, you can only score 2 points. And should we get to a third overtime period and beyond, we're putting the ball at the 3-yard line, and we're only going to be running 2-point conversions from thereafter. What has changed is, should we get to a third overtime period, teams now are only getting 1 charge timeout for the remainder of the game. They get 1 charge timeout for their first overtime period. They get 1 charge timeout for the second overtime period. Once they get to the third overtime period, they only have 1 for the remainder of the game. So in this particular game, with this year's rules, if one of the teams had taken a charge timeout in the fourth overtime, they do not have a charge timeout for the remainder of the game. Why would this be significant? Why would a team want to call a timeout when they're only running a single play for their offensive series? Doesn't happen a lot, but one thing you need to think of is, and this happens more than you would believe, get your team on the sideline, you're on offense, or maybe you're on defense. You call your play or you call your defensive coverage, and the kids break the huddle, they run out on the field, and the wrong kids ran out on the field, or 12 ran on the field, or only 10 ran on the field. That's when a coach might want to call a timeout, when we're only running 2-point conversions, right? The second change is, once we get to a third media timeout, the media partner can no longer go to commercial, right? They're allowed to go to commercial in between the end of regular time and the first overtime period, in between the first overtime and the second overtime period. Once they go to break after the second overtime period, they need to stay with the game to its conclusion. One other play that I don't have video for and doesn't need it, one other rule change that I don't have video for because it doesn't need it is, like the NFL did a number of years ago, we no longer are going to have stands or confirmed outcomes in replay. Our replay rules through the 2024 season have always been that we have a tertiary outcome. We either are going to overturn, we're going to confirm, or we have stands. Now we're just going to we have enough video evidence to overturn the ruling on the field, or we're going to uphold the ruling on the field. This, like I said, this is something the NFL did a number of years ago. Why are we doing this? What we saw was that we had replay crews sometimes taking extra time. They knew they didn't have video evidence, indisputable video evidence to overturn the ruling on the field. But they took extra time to see whether they could confirm it or they needed to go stands. And it doesn't have any purpose at that point in time, because once you get to the point that you know you don't have indisputable video evidence to overturn the play as called in the field, we're just going to uphold it and go. So now we just have a dual outcome, overturn or upheld. So that's it. Let's wrap up. We have, last year was